All right, everybody. On behalf of Trident Title, Performance Title, and Synergy Title, I want to welcome you back to Better Call Paul. This is our third one of the year, and I think this is one of the more interesting topics we cover. No offense, but contracts are not always that exciting, but I think things like this are. So today we're going to talk about 1031 exchanges. I know there's some of you on here who legitimately just have no idea what that is, so we'll let Paul start with a little teaser and warm up on that. And with a lot of people unsure of the economy, buying and selling big pieces of property, trying to defer tax and figure out what they're going to do, this is a perfect time for this. When we talked about it last week with Paul, he said he had a couple of big ones, almost like case studies going on now that I know he's going to share with us. And as always, if you guys have any questions about 1031 exchanges, we'll stay on at the end to get those covered. So, Paul, tell us what a 1031 exchange is, why it's important, how they do it, how they get in touch with you to do it. Give us some examples, whatever you got for us, take it away.
Sure. So a 1031 like-kind exchange is an Internal Revenue Code section 1031, that allows you to defer the capital gains on a sale of another property if you're going to purchase a like-kind property. What does that really mean? That means if you're selling a piece of real property, you can put all of the proceeds from that sale into a new property and defer the payment of any capital gains. I'll give you an example. If you bought a house for $100,000 and you fixed it up by putting $50,000 into it, your basis in that property is $150,000. If you have a gain because you're selling it for $500,000, that's a $350,000 gain. If you don't want to pay the 23.8% tax that would be due on a long-term capital gain, and you would prefer to roll all of that $500,000 into another property that's, say, worth $1 million, then you can do that through a like-kind exchange. You would hire a qualified intermediary, and we find them for you, and you would park the money. So you would never take possession of the money from the first closing. You would park the money with a qualified intermediary, and then the qualified intermediary would give that to the next closing agent when you were buying your property. Now, there are two time periods that you have to be aware of on a traditional 1031 exchange. The first time period is within 45 days of the first closing. You need to identify the new property or properties. So you can identify up to 3 properties. All you have to do is close on one. You can identify as many properties as you want, as long as they don't total more than 200% of the price that you sold the first property for. Or if you're buying a whole host of smaller properties, you can identify up to 99 properties. But the trick there is that you have to close on a certain percentage of those. So that last one is very difficult to do unless you're a portfolio purchaser. So again, the 1031 exchange, let's use my example, $150,000 that you have into this property. You're selling it for $500,000. You're out there, and within the 45 days after the sale, you identify 3 properties that you're considering to invest. One, you're going to invest just the $500,000. The next one, you'd have to put in another $200,000, and the third one, you'd have to get a mortgage for another $500,000 because it's $1 million. So you could identify all 3 of those properties, and then during your due diligence period with those 3 properties, you would pick the one you're going to close on. And you could pick 2 and split the money up. The other date, other than 45 days to identify a property, is that you have 180 days or 6 months to finish it up. You have another 6 months or 180 days to actually close on that replacement property.
So it could
and
be
it-
180 plus 45. So we're talking.
No, it's not 180 plus 45. It's 180 from the original sale date.
Okay.
So you have 45 days to identify and then 180 days from the original sale date to close on it.
Got it.
There are all sorts of little details about 1031s. There's more complicated ones. So you can do a reverse exchange. You can buy the property first and then sell the other property within 6 months. But obviously that's dangerous if you don't sell your property in 6 months. You're stuck with 2 properties. The people who want to do this are in 2 camps. One, elderly people who may have a 2-story house that have a tremendous amount of gain built into a sale. So I'll give you the example of my next door neighbor who bought her property for $70,000 back in 1978. Her property is now worth $1.2 million. And she doesn't want to pay capital gains on that money. She's 90 years old. She's going to die soon. She would rather give that money to her kids. And if she sold the property today, she'd have to pay the capital gains. So she'd lose basically $238,000 of capital gains that she'd have to pay the government. She can't stay in her house anymore because it's a 2-story house. She can't live there. She needs to be in a 1-story place or in an apartment. So what is she going to do? She's going to sell her house and she's going to do a 1031 exchange into another house that's worth the same amount of money, so that when she dies, her kids will get a step up in basis. Today, it's under the $11 million for an estate tax liability. So her kids will get that entire amount of money free and clear. So that's what's going on, and that's why it's going on. Questions about the 1031s?
Yeah, I see one. Abby has her hand up. Abby, you can either type it in the chat or just unmute yourself and come on. Either one is cool.
Hi, Paul. Abby Konigsberg. How are you?
Doing great, Abby. How you doing?
Good. I have a client for a 1031. She's selling multiple units in another state, and she does not want to sell them on the MLS. So it's been a little difficult, and she wants to sell them as a group. She's got, like, I'd say 6 different places rented out, and then another little apartment building. So I'm assuming it's maybe $1 million total. She wants to come here and she wants to buy apartments and a single family in Miami Beach. Well, I've been looking, and the reality is anything that goes on the market, not only is it very high priced, but it's sold in a week. So how is it going to be possible that I am going to be able to, are you still there? I'm going to be able to identify a property and then what, submit a contract after that? How does that work on my end?
So as soon as you have the sale on her end and you park the money and you know what you have available, that's the time to submit offers. And during that 45-day period to identify properties, hopefully you get one of them or 2 of them. But I wouldn't go ahead and start submitting offers too far in advance, because you might not close on a timely basis. You'd have to cancel the purchase deal if the sale deal didn't close.
Well, that's going to always be the case with this 1031. Am I correct?
No. Why are you saying that?
So as soon as they go under contract on the sale out of state, I'm going to start identifying properties, and I'm going to try and get her under contract immediately.
So I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I would wait till you're within 10 days of closing and there's no contingencies to close on the sales.
Okay,
And that's when I would start looking for properties. And if you want to put a property under contract a couple of days before closing, just to make sure that you have the ability to get in there and control the property, that's fine, as long as you can cancel it if the closings don't happen on our sales.
okay. And so what you're saying is that the clock starts ticking, not when she goes under contract with the sale, but when she actually closes on the sale and the money's transferred to an intermediary.
Correct. When that sale happens and the money's transferred into the 1031,
Then I
that's
have
when the clock
45
starts
days.
ticking. Yes.
Okay, then I have 45 days, and then closing's no problem. I mean, we'll be able to close, no problem. All right, this was really timely, and I'm appreciative for this
Sure.
webinar. Thank you very much, Paul.
Sure, of course.
Thanks for jumping
Okay.
on, Abby. Anybody else have any questions?
And in general, I would just say, if you have somebody that's elderly, that's worried about their estate, that should die with the property, but needs to transfer out of this property into another one, they're a great candidate for a 1031. The other candidates for 1031 are investors who have seen massive appreciation in their property, maybe haven't held the property for a year and don't want to get hit with the regular capital gains, but want to sell now while the area is hot and reinvest somewhere else. Those are great for 1031s. The cost is about $1,250 to hire the qualified intermediary. You can find mom and pop qualified intermediaries on the internet. Good luck to you if you do it. I won't represent your clients. Half of those people have their money stolen. They find somebody on the internet to do it for $600, and for $625, they're not going to go with Fidelity National Title, which is the safest bet you can go with. They're going to go with, John Smith Subs /1031, and they shocked when they lose all their money.
So
And the
what's
guy
the
ends up-
process? What's the process for an agent, Paul? Like just Abby or anybody, let's just say they have one of these coming in. Do they get in touch with you to kind of
Call me, I'll walk them through it. I'll get on the phone with their client and them. I'll take them through the time periods. I'll make the introduction to the qualified intermediary. It's simple.
All right, another question. Oh, Abby, that's you. Go ahead. Come back on if you want.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Paul, I guess it's kind of nice when I put my video on and then you can see I haven't even showered today. So, for whatever reason, this client is doing the 1031. She came to me wanting the 1031. And I had, at my previous Keller Williams in Fort Lauderdale, we had a intermediary come in, and I know they're substantial, and I know the commercial girl there has used them, and they're very reputable. So I know someone reputable. Why should my client come to you? I didn't know that I need an attorney at this point. I thought the intermediary could be doing everything.
So the qualified intermediary should be able to handle
Okay.
the exchange document, the replacement document, all the rest. Most people aren't sophisticated enough with 1031s, and they want a lawyer to be
Okay.
involved just to make sure it's fine. But if you're going with a good qualified intermediary, you should be fine.
Okay, wonderful. You're always the best. Thank you, Paul.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Anybody else? Any questions? I heard a stat the other day that whenever you ask people to respond on Zoom or Teams, the average time you have to wait is at least 7 seconds. So usually I'm like 1 second and past. So I'm going to give it 7 seconds from now on. Anybody else? Any questions on 1031s? All right, Paul, give them the plug or the number at least. So if they do have somebody for this, they can get you.
Yeah, a direct dial number at the office, 515-2929.
Perfect. Awesome. Somebody else Lisa, I just saw you unmute. Did you have a question or?
Yes, I have a question. the 1031 exchanges, is it only for homes that's buying in another state, or can you use it in the state that you live in?
No, so 1031 exchanges, you don't have to, if you're selling a condo, you don't have to buy a condo. If you're selling a farm, you could buy a condo. If you're selling an office building, you could buy a residence. It's real estate to real estate is fine, and it's anywhere in the country.
Okay, good. Because and it's only if, what about if you're not selling? You have to sell something in order to
Correct.
get the credit. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Believe it
Abby,
or not, I had been certified in this about 3 years ago, and I just forget everything if you don't use it. That's why I jumped on here. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Abby, go ahead. I see your hand up again.
So Paul, I thought it had to be a like kind, meaning if it's a shopping center, you had to buy commercial property that's going to be rented out commercially. No?
Ma'am, nope. You could do vacant land to retail. You could do office to residential. It's just
Okay.
real estate to real estate.
Okay, and what about the point that you can't live in it, the one that you're buying as your primary, it still has to be
It's supposed to be an
renting it out.
investment property.
All right. And how particular are they on that?
Don't ask the man that
Okay.
question.
Okay, yeah,
We
okay.
should
so
address that
if-
on a deal by deal basis. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. All right, thanks
Well,
again. Bye-bye.
What can a person have, say that they sell their home and they purchase a lot to get one built, but they rent it out to someone else, but they actually still come down and live in it as a secondary, I guess, I mean, well, not a secondary, but still live in it, but they're renting out portion of it. How does that work?
So if it's a rental property primarily, you're allowed to do the 1031. If you're using it, you'd argue that it's an incidental use, period.
All right, anybody else? All right, well, on behalf of Trident Performance and Synergy, Paul, thank you as always. Monday, guys, we are doing a class on our app, a bunch of huge updates over the last couple of days. So if you guys want to jump on that, we'd love to have you. And then next Thursday, same time, same place, we are doing buyer representation with Paul. So hopefully see you guys all Monday and Thursday. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks, Paul.
You got it. Bye.